To be followed by Alex Rowley.
Thank you, Presiding Officer. Presiding Officer, last year at the Festival of Politics, my family and I were lucky enough to have tickets to see the Scottish Youth Theatre's production of Now's the Hour. It was a play written by young people, for young people, about their thoughts, fears, aspirations and experiences of this referendum. And members of the Chamber may have shared my pleasure on Saturday evening in being able to watch a documentary about the making of Now's the Hour. And this play comes to no conclusion about which way to vote. But what it did demonstrate was how knowledgeable, practical, passionate and inspired the young people of Scotland are about this debate of independence. I was particularly taken with the exercise of writing a letter to one's future self, some 30 years down the line, about what the hopes and for the future would be for the young people, and it's something I think perhaps politicians would benefit from doing as well. I just hope I'd be around to read mine, inshallah.
Ms Adamson, sorry, could you move your microphone round slightly? Thank you very much.
Sorry, Presiding Officer. The young people highlighted in the course of this documentary the big issues for them about the referendum, and it was about what kind of country we want to be, about the cohesion that our country might have, about our education and will it still be free? Will we still have nuclear weapons? What will climate change mean for a future Scotland? And the documentary, indeed the play, reminded me that Scotland's future is about these young people, their future and future generations. And on the 18th of September, it is the biggest opportunity to ask ourselves these big questions and the opportunity to shape the country that Scotland can be. Presiding Officer, I believe that the economic argument is made. There is no doubt that Scotland can more than afford to be an independent nation. Recent OECD figures show that Scotland would be the 14th richest nation in terms of GDP. And when it comes to oil, it is a bonus on top of Scotland's economic capabilities, as demonstrated by the ratings agency Standard & Poor's. We should be independent, because Scotland has demonstrated time and time again that the political will is for policies of social justice. And yet again, we find ourselves with a Westminster government we didn't vote for, and a government whose policies will drive 100,000 more children in Scotland into poverty by 2020. At the same time, £100 billion will be spent on weapons of mass destruction on the Clyde. Yes, I will take.
Jenny Mara.
If her party and government are so committed to poverty, why they have taken £1 billion out of the poverty budget since they were elected in 2007?
Clare Adamson.
I would challenge Miss Mara's assertion. I would also challenge, given the debates that we have had in this chamber regarding poverty, about the commitment of this government in tackling these issues. And can I say to you, your colleague mentioned the bedroom tax and the action that this government has taken. In a fixed budget, when we spend money mitigating against the bedroom tax, that's money not spent on other issues like poverty in Scotland. Presiding Officer, many of the voices of the young people in this documentary, and from those on the doorsteps, is worry. It's a worry that making the wrong decision, whatever that might be, that they will have contributed to making things worse. And Ms Malcolm just mentioned things could be worse, and they could be worse. We could move even further in the shameful position of the fourth most unequal country in the developed world. And if the austerity policies, as promised by Mr Osborne, continue, it's likely that we will. There's also the situation of the referendum on Europe, as promised by the Conservatives, or indeed whichever government might be elected to Westminster. Scotland, as we discussed in this very chamber last week, has a proud tradition as a European nation, one who wants to engage with Europe, and yet we could see ourselves dragged out on the back of votes from the rest of the UK from a position that Scotland wants to be in. There have been a few mentions in the course of the debate of other issues regarding Scotland at the moment, and Mr Rennie mentioned international development. And given that we've just celebrated the anniversary of one of the greatest people in the world who reached out to Malawi, a Scottish person, I think that we have to consider that the UK is one of the richest countries in the world. And yet that 0.7% target of GNI spent on international development has only been reached by them once last year. We could do so much more as an independent nation. I hope that what we take from the debate today is a thought that we are thinking about the future, about our young people, my own son, future generations, and what Scotland could be in the future. And I know for one, in my letter, I will have made the promise to myself that it's fundamentally better for all of us if the decisions about Scotland's future are taken by the people who care most about Scotland, and that is by the people of Scotland.